Now, moving on, we still have a couple more branches coming off this axillary artery here. We have two arteries that are going to wrap around the surgical head of the humerus, and they're called anterior circumflex humeral artery, and then also the posterior circumflex humeral artery. Now, one thing you want to note is the posterior circumflex artery is much larger than the anterior is, so it's a lot fatter. And so let's go back one more page here so we can take a look at them. Here they are right here, both of them. So this one coming out to the front here is the anterior circumflex humeral artery, and then the ones going to the back. And in reality, if we were looking at the picture of the cadaver, that posterior would be a lot bigger than the anterior. And so that's the posterior circumflex humeral artery. Now, this axillary artery, at some point after it passes the teres minor, it's no longer in the axillary region, but it's now starting to become in the brachial region. So it's still the same vessel, but it's in a new region. We're going to call it something else now. We're going to call it the brachial artery. And so right along here, it's eventually going into a different region. So we call this whole thing the brachial artery. And then right around the elbow, the brachial artery is actually going to branch into two other arteries, the radial and the ulnar artery. And they just get their names because they follow along the path of the bone. Now, radial artery is actually a clinically significant artery, as this is usually where you take your pulse or someone else's pulse on the outside of their wrist. You're feeling their radial artery. And so that's what we see right here. So right about the elbow, right here, we see that split. So brachial artery splits into radial artery, which is thumb side, goes all the way down, and then ulnar artery goes down the medial side. Now, veins, most of these are going to have the exact same name because they follow the exact same path. And we kind of covered that in chapter 3 and 4 when we went over arteries and veins, that if they have the same name, they're going to be following just along with the artery. So we're not going to spend a huge amount of time on the veins just because they're going to be right next to the arteries we just covered. So axillary vein is going to be the most medial structure right under the clavicle. And then all of these branches we did are going to have the exact same branches in a vein form, and they're going to follow almost the exact same path next to their artery. These veins, though, are going to be some of the newer ones, so we'll spend some more time on these. So our first one's called the cephalic vein, and this is the vein that you see running over someone's bicep. And so this actually goes from right around the deltoid muscle all the way down to around the thumb. So it's a very long vein, but it's called the cephalic vein. On the medial aspect, superficial, so let's mark cephalic as well. So cephalic is a superficial vein. So it's close to the skin. That's why you can see it popping out of the skin on some people. Basilic is also a more superficial vein. And this is going to run on the inside of the arm. And it's going to go from right around the middle of the brachial region all the way down the inside of the arm to around the pinky. And so that will be basilic vein. Brachial vein is going to be deep. It's going to follow right next to the artery. But a lot of times brachial vein is two veins that surrounds the artery. So as we take a look here, we're going to go ahead and use a different color to highlight the superficial vein. So cephalic vein right here, that is going to be superficial. And it's going to go all the way down to the thumb. And also basilic vein, which is on the inside of the arm here, and it's going to go down to the pinky. Brachial vein, though, is going to be deep as it dives internal there next to the artery. We also have a vein called the median cubital or the antecubital vein, and this is going to be a short little vein right about the bend of the elbow. It's going to be superficial, and it's actually going to connect the cephalic to the basilic vein. This is usually where people try to draw your blood from. And then we're also going to have deep veins, ulnar and radial veins following their arteries.